David Jones. Robert Half's annual salary surveys were conducted during the first quarter of 2010 and give an overview of the employment landscape and future outlook for the finance, banking and accounting sectors. What was the scope of these surveys?
There were two distinct surveys that were undertaken across Asia Pacific, one to all commerce and industry-based clients and one to all financial services and banking-based clients. The responses that we had were over 3,500, so it was very significant. And with the data, we were really able to distill down and focus on a number of key statistics and evaluate both what really employers are feeling in today's marketplace and also what employees are feeling about today's market as well.
The global economy has experienced a turbulent time over the last few years, and the Asia-Pacific region has not escaped this. Can you give us an overview of staffing changes that the finance, accounting and banking sectors have faced over the past 12 months and shed some light on what's in store for 2010 and 2011?
So the main thing is that markets, whether it's within commerce and industry or financial services, have definitely stabilised in all countries over the last 12 months. You can look at Asia Pacific and sort of draw some comparisons between countries and how they've performed. The stronger performing countries, or the countries that have rebounded fastest from the downturn, would be Australia, Singapore and Hong Kong. Japan and New Zealand, albeit that their economies are perhaps at two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of size, you can almost put them in the same boat. They've perhaps followed more the akin to what's been happening in North America and Europe in terms of their economies. The financial services markets have bounced back first in really all countries. I don't think that that's too unusual given that they went into the downturn first, so that's pretty normal as given what's happened in prior downturns around the world.
Now that there's a more positive outlook for the Asia-Pacific region, are we due to see more movement of employees around the region?
More movement is occurring. It's fair to say, though, that the majority of movement is happening within companies. It's not necessarily happening through third parties like ourselves. It does occur, but it would be wrong of me to say it's happening on a mass scale at the moment. People are still very much focused on cost and cost control, and expats are more expensive than local employees. And wherever possible, people are always looking to get talent from the local marketplace rather than look people internationally. Within an organisation, though, within a multinational, whether that multinational is within banking or whether that multinational is within wider commerce and industry, there is more international moves that are occurring in order to help retain their best staff members going forward.
Are there any gender-specific trends that have emerged through the Robert Half APAC salary surveys?
Well, I think over the last 12 to 18 months, people have had to work more hours. A number of people have had to take reductions in pay. So there's been somewhat of a trade-off. What are people looking for if they are working more hours or working for less money? For some people, that could be additional training and benefits and so on and so forth. In terms of gender-specific, one thing that we are seeing is that the survey responses really showed that women are looking for greater flexibility over men, whether that be flexible work arrangements or the ability to be able to work from home. That being said, not all employers are able to provide that degree of flexibility in today's market.
There is a renewed level of optimism in the Asia-Pacific region. Has this resulted in an influx of job opportunities, or are employers still showing some reluctance to commit to hiring new staff? And are candidates in the finance, accounting and banking sectors feeling more confident about looking for new job opportunities?
If you look in all countries, employment rates are stabilising or going down. Job posting numbers are increasing. But there are really two types of jobs that are being offered, or the reason why vacancies are occurring. Those that are a result of expansive progression, as in terms of there are new jobs being created, or jobs being created as a consequence of people moving around. So people perhaps cut a little bit too deep in some countries within Asia Pacific during the downturn, particularly those multinational organisations, whether that's in banking or commerce, that were domiciled or headquartered overseas in Europe or North America, that could sort of see the extent of the downturn and try to get ahead of the curve. And then perhaps in some parts of Asia Pacific, most notably Australia, Singapore and Hong Kong, perhaps cut a little bit too deeply. The reality is, though, that people's sentiment is improving all of the time. So people are more confident about looking for new job opportunities, and that in itself is causing movement within financial services or within wider commerce and industry. So there's really two reasons for renewed optimism. Yes, there are more jobs being created, but as employees feel more confident, confident about their own job security, they are moving and looking for new opportunities.
Do employees in Japan believe that their salary is in line with current market conditions?
So the results are pretty similar in terms of the responses from both commerce industry and financial services, with roughly 50% of people feeling pretty good about the way that they're being remunerated. And that was in keeping with other countries like Australia that felt pretty good about the same results. One thing that was probably noteworthy from the responses, though, that more people were asked or took a pay reduction over the last 12 months in Japan than any other country. And the question is whether or not that needs to be addressed moving forward. Was it appropriate to take the pay cut? How long is that pay cut relevant for before it's reviewed?
How confident are employees in Japan in their company's growth prospects? And has the upturn led to a more optimistic attitude?
From all the countries that were surveyed, unfortunately Japan had the least amount of optimism about growth or the employees' nature of growth of their employing company, with 30% of people anticipating zero to no growth at all. So I think that employers need to make sure that they are continually communicating with their employees, making sure that they're sharing the successes, the wins of the company, making sure that those successes that are felt in the front office, the sort of pointy end of an operation, are making their way back to the back room and really focusing on improving morale within those employing companies.
Now that the job market has become more buoyant, how open are Japanese employees in the finance, accounting and banking sectors to discussing salary expectations?
So I would say that within Japan, the job market has become more stable as opposed to more buoyant. I think that it's very much the way in Japan that people don't like discussing their pay openly with their employers. And so it's always a little bit of a difficult task to establish how happy employees are with their employers. That being said, there's a high degree of loyalty within Japan, much like New Zealand. And I think that people will not just move for small increments in salary, that they are very loyal to their employing companies in Japan.
How did the economic downturn affect the work-life balance for finance, accounting and banking staff in Japan?
So Japan have the longest working week, and how that's defined is the highest number of respondents that said that they worked over 55 hours in a week was from Japan. So I think that it's often been talked about work-life balance within Japan. There's probably an appreciation that perhaps a company needs to come before home life a little bit. So I don't think people are unduly worried about work-life balance. I just think that the culture is quite different between some of the other countries within Asia Pacific, most notably probably Australia and New Zealand, where the focus is much more for a work-life balance.
Are there any industry sectors in Japan that you predict will be more buoyant in the next 12 to 18 months?
So within the financial services marketplace, there's been a lot of merger and acquisition work, particularly within investment banking and within the insurance sector as well. Well, that is causing some people to be made available on the marketplace, but it's also creating some unique opportunities as a consequence of that sort of acquisition and merger-based activity. So there will be some opportunity going forward within insurance and investment banking. Within wider commerce and industry, really it's looking for those people that have the analytical skills, often the US GAAP reporting skills, those people that are going to be working within financial control, sort of the standard FP&A type of roles along with the analytics. So there are going to be some opportunities in Japan, but it's going to be a tougher road ahead, I think, in Japan versus some of the other Asian Pacific countries. But things are definitely stable, and I think the continuation of the financial stimulus packages within Japan are going to help overall bring the economy forward.